People don't believe me when I say emotional pain can leave scars, but I feel them every single day. They don't bruise and they don't bleed, but they ache like old bones in a storm. Especially when I look at her, my sister, Natalie, golden child, daddy's princess, mom's pride, the family's shining star, and me. I was the shadow she cast. I learned not to ask for things. When I was 8 and Natalie was 9, she asked for a birthday party and got a magician, a catered buffet, and a pony ride. When I turned 8 the next year, I asked for cake, just cake. I got a pack of store-brand cupcakes and a lecture about being ungrateful. By the time I was 17, I didn't ask for anything anymore. I washed dishes, did laundry, picked up the slack when Natalie forgot her chores and still got yelled at for not being as helpful as your sister. If I cried, I was dramatic. If I got angry, I was ungrateful. If I disappeared into myself, I was called cold. The only thing they wanted from me was silence. The end of the world didn't change that. When society fell, when cities collapsed and monsters filled the streets, I thought naively that maybe now we'd see each other as equals, that maybe survival would make them realize my worth. Instead, it only showed how little they valued me. We found a safe house. Natalie claimed the only bedroom. I slept on the floor. We found canned food. She ate first. I got what was left, if there was anything at all. And when it came time to run, when the city burned and the ground shook and the sky cracked open, they left me, Natalie crying, Dad yelling to leave dead weight, Mom silent like she always was. I chased them barefoot through ash and ruin until I couldn't anymore. And when the cold crept in and my breath felt heavy and thick, I laid there in the dirt with torn hands and bloodied feet, whispering, why wasn't I ever enough? And then I woke up, warm, clean, back in my childhood bed. The calendar on the wall read, March 3rd, 1 year before the end. I stared at the ceiling for a long, long time. Then I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was hollow, shaky, cracked right down the middle. Because I knew what was coming. I knew who they really were, and this time I wouldn't beg. The powers didn't show themselves right away. For weeks, I stumbled through school and chores and fake smiles like a marionette with her strings tangled. Every word from my parents scraped across old wounds. Every smug, laughing look from Natalie dug into me like nails, but I endured. Because this time, I wasn't going to cry. I was going to build. The first time it happened, I was alone in the garage. I picked up an old wrench to fix the generator. The moment I touched it, it disappeared into nothing. I screamed, dropped it. But when I thought about it, reached for it again, it came back, materialized right into my hand. I tried again. This time with a flashlight, stored, returned, duplicated. It duplicated. I sat there in stunned silence for nearly an hour, surrounded by flashlights and tools and 2 identical crowbars. Then I smiled, not a pretty smile, not soft. It was sharp, crooked, the kind of smile you carve from spite and survival. Because I knew what this meant. This time, they'd all need me. But I wouldn't need any of them. They called me quiet. What they really meant was invisible. At school, the teachers forgot I was in their class. At home, I was furniture, useful if needed, ignored otherwise. But that was fine. Glass shatters loudly when it breaks. And I was already starting to crack. Natalie had a sleepover that weekend. 6 girls in total, loud, obnoxious, fake. I cooked the dinner, washed the dishes, and was then told to stay out of the way. I wasn't even allowed to eat the lasagna I made. Dad passed me in the hallway and said, try not to embarrass us tonight. Mom chimed in with, just be a good girl, honey. Natalie's guests aren't used to, well, just stay in your room, okay? I nodded like a doll, blank-faced, pretty compliant, and then I took a roll of toilet paper, a flashlight, 3 granola bars, and a can of soup from the kitchen and teleported them straight into my storage space while no one was looking. Glass girl, they used to whisper at school because I was always so pale, because I never talked, because I looked like I'd shatter if someone bumped into me. They didn't know that the cracks weren't weakness. They were warning signs. Over the next few weeks, I built my empire in silence. Every time I got change from lunch, stored. Every time Natalie left makeup lying around, duplicated. Every time Mom went shopping, I'd help unpack, and a few extra cans of tuna, bottled water, and soap would vanish under my sleeve. The space inside my storage seemed infinite, endless shelves and pitch black quiet. No smell, no dust, just mine. I started organizing. Food in one aisle, tools in another, medical supplies by brand and use. A whole rack for knives, screwdrivers, hammers, scissors. The first time I smuggled in a fire axe, I laughed for hours. That night, they all slept peacefully upstairs. I watched from the hallway with the axe in my hands, wondering what it would take for them to notice me. Then I put it away. Not yet. Natalie still smirked when she saw me, still paraded her approval like a badge I'd never earn. She came into my room uninvited one night, wearing my sweater. My sweater, the one Grandma gave me before she died. The only person who ever looked at me like I mattered. Looks better on me, don't you think? She said, tossing her hair over her shoulder. She dropped it on the floor when she left. Didn't even hang it up. I picked it up, folded it carefully, and stored it in my inventory. Not because I needed it, because it would never touch her again. I stopped reacting to them. Mom complained I was cold. Dad said I had an attitude. Natalie joked I was probably autistic, loud enough for me to hear. I didn't even blink, because I was counting down the days. Every step they took was closer to the fire. On April 3rd, exactly 11 months before the outbreak, I tested the limits of teleportation. I snuck into the woods during gym and marked a tree, walked back to school, thought about the bark, the scent, the sunlit clearing, and then I vanished, just blinked from one place to the next. No sound, no flash, just gone. And when I returned to school 10 seconds later, nobody had noticed. I was a ghost in their world. But in the one I was building, I was a god. Pain doesn't always come with screaming. Sometimes it arrives quietly like a sigh behind a closed door, or the silence that follows when someone chooses not to speak your name. It started with the car. Dad's was at the shop. Mom's had a flat. Natalie, of course, needed to be driven to a college tour 2 hours away. They looked at me like I was the obvious choice. I didn't even have a license. You've ridden with me enough, haven't you? Dad said. Just follow the GPS. I stared at him. At all of them. I hadn't even been invited to apply to college. We couldn't afford it, apparently. But Natalie? Natalie got hotels and tours and road trips and branded hoodies. I almost refused. I almost said, find your own damn ride. But then I thought about the miles, the distance, the wilderness between us and the world, the excuse to scout, so I agreed. The tour went fine. Natalie flirted with the guide. I memorized the fire exits. But it was the drive back that broke something inside me. Rain hit hard. The car hydroplaned. We slid off the road. Not a crash, no fireball. Just 2 girls in a shallow ditch in the middle of nowhere with a dead engine and no cell reception. Natalie panicked, cried, begged me to fix it. I stayed calm. Assessed the damage. Told her we'd have to wait until morning. She slapped me, hard, across the face. You're so useless. She screamed, mascara running like war paint. You're always like this, just dead weight. Can't you do anything right? I didn't cry. I didn't shout back. I just turned away and whispered to the dark woods beyond the windshield. I hope you remember this, because I would. I'd remember everything. I teleported us home at dawn, silently, while she was half asleep. Made up a lie about a farmer helping us. Let her have the story. I watched her walk into the house and receive a hero's welcome. Oh, poor baby, you must have been terrified. You did the right thing staying calm. You're so mature. They didn't even ask if I was okay. I stood dripping in the hallway, my cheeks still burning, and not a single one of them noticed. That night, I took everything I'd stored, every can, every bottle, every light, every blade, and organized it with surgical precision because it was time. Time to stop pretending I wanted their love. Time to prepare for the world I would own. It started with the sirens, not police, not ambulance, something deeper. Mechanical, monolithic. I was folding laundry when it began. Natalie was live streaming some skincare routine in the next room. Mom was on the phone. Dad was late from work, normal, unremarkable, until the world ended. The house shook. The sky turned red. No warning, no buildup, just chaos. The internet died. The power went with it. Outside, people screamed. I opened my window and saw the sky split open like torn flesh-black lightning, flashing in unnatural angles, like the world was glitching. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my emergency pack from my storage space, slung it over my shoulder, and teleported straight to the tree in the woods. The moment I arrived, silence hit me, heavy, sacred. Then I took my first real breath in 17 years. But I didn't leave them. Not yet. I went back. Not for love. Not for them, for supplies, for leverage, for closure. The house was in chaos. Natalie was sobbing. Mom was trying to get a call through. Dad had made it home, but was screaming at the radio. "You came back," Mom cried when she saw me, eyes wet with fear. I didn't speak. You went out? Where did you go?" "I'm prepared," I said flatly. "You should pack. We're leaving in 10 minutes. They stared at me like I'd grown horns. "Leave? Save, only sensei. With you? Are you crazy?" "Do what you want," I said. "I'm going with or without you." That got Dad's attention. "You think you're in charge now?" I looked at him. No fear in my voice. "Yes." 10 minutes later, I stood outside with a full bug-out pack, water, weapons, and medical kits. My boots were tied. My coat was armored. They came out with plastic bags and a cooler full of soda. Mom had heels on. Natalie brought her curling iron. Dad insisted on locking the front door, as if that would save the house from what was coming. And still, they followed me. Because they had nothing else. That night, the city burned behind us. Creatures emerged wrong-shaped, skinless things with too many joints and no eyes. People screamed in the distance. Cars exploded. Helicopters fell like dying birds, and I kept walking. They followed, shivering, whimpering, asking me what to do. I gave no comfort, only orders. For the first time in my life, they listened. The shelter was an old ranger's cabin deep in the woods. I de-scouted it months ago, back when Natalie's words still stung, and I still believed in someday getting away. Now, it was mine. No locks on the doors, no cameras. Just 2 floors of thick wood, a root cellar, and a roof that hadn't collapsed yet. It was perfection. I activated the duplication on my hidden stash the moment we crossed the threshold, tripling my supplies without anyone noticing. Beds, lanterns, clean water, rations, medical gear. I rationed it with a cold smile. 1 meal each, no seconds. "You have more," Natalie snapped when she caught me pulling out extra antiseptic for my own kit. "You're hoarding." I looked her dead in the eyes. "No, I'm planning." "You wouldn't last a week out there without me?" She scoffed, but she didn't argue. Not really. Because deep down, she knew I was right. They all did. By the 3rd day, the silence in the cabin turned acidic. Dad didn't like taking orders. Natalie hated being treated as just another body. And Mom Mom tried to mediate, tried to coddle them like she always did. Not me, though. Never me. I was still the maid, still the scapegoat. Even now, until Natalie tried to sneak out. She thought I was asleep. She crept to the storage crates and tried to open the locked trunk where I kept most of the emergency meds. She didn't even make it 2 steps before I teleported behind her. "What are you doing?" I asked. She jumped, screamed a little. "None of your business. I'm tired of being treated like dirt." "You were trying to steal," I said calmly. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth twisted into a scowl. "Who even are you anymore? You think you're so high and mighty just because you packed a few stupid cans of soup. You're not special." "No," I agreed. "I'm essential." She tried to slap me again. This time I caught her wrist mid-swing. "I am not the girl you used to hit," I said. "Try again and I'll let you go outside. Let's see how far your tantrum gets you out there." I dropped her arm. She backed away like she'd seen a ghost. Maybe she had, because I wasn't the ghost anymore. She was. That night, I found her crying. Hunched in the hallway, arms around her knees. I didn't offer comfort, didn't say a word. But I handed her a protein bar and a clean pair of socks. Because power isn't cruelty. Power is choice. And I wanted her to see every kindness from me now wasn't obligation. It was mercy. The storm rolled in like a living thing. No warning, no signs. 1 minute the air was still. The next it howled like a beast at the walls. Snow came down in sheets, thick and fast, drowning everything. We were trapped. The shelter creaked with the weight of the wind. The fire I kept going in the hearth was our only source of warmth. No power, no backup, no margin for error. Natalie had a cough by morning. By nightfall, she was burning up. Mom panicked first, as expected. She cried, cradling Natalie, begging me to do something while refusing to follow my instructions. "She needs real medicine, antibiotics. Can't you magic something up?" "No," I said, eyes like stone. "But I can keep her alive if you let me work." Dad loomed over me like he used to. Tried to intimidate me into working faster, doing more. Like I wasn't already the only reason we hadn't frozen to death. "You think you're in charge just because you had a head start?" He barked. "She's your sister." "Then maybe you should have treated me like a daughter." I snapped back. I made them boil water again and again. Forced Mom to sponge Natalie down. Forced Dad to carry wood and kindling until his back ached. I mixed herbs from my duplicated stash ones I had carefully scavenged, dried, stored, crushed them into bitter tea. Made Natalie drink it mouthful by mouthful. I sat by her all night while they slept, listening to her shallow breaths, watching her burn. And I didn't cry because I remembered. I remembered the way she shoved me into lockers at school and laughed. I remembered the lies she told, how I stole her things, how I wasn't right in the head. I remembered the way she called me a freak when I flinched from Mom's hand. But more than that, I remembered being 8 years old and watching her get extra slices of birthday cake while I swept up confetti no one threw for me. Natalie pulled through. Not because of them, because of me. When she woke up 2 days later, dazed and weak, I handed her water and fed her rice porridge with a carved wooden spoon. She looked at me like she didn't know who I was. I didn't say anything. She didn't either. But that silence, it was different this time. Not full of contempt, full of realization. It started with a voice on the radio. ID repaired it weeks ago, wired a makeshift antenna from scrap metal and a battery pack I duplicated. The others never paid it much attention. They thought it was just another of my quirks, until the voice crackled through. "If you're out there, we have shelter, food, weapons, a community. Westridge, we'll be listening. Hope, real hope, not for them. For me." They swarmed me the moment the broadcast repeated. "Did you hear that?" Mom's voice was shaking. "A real group." You should get us there. Westridge, Dad muttered. We can finally stop living like animals. Natalie just looked terrified. But none of them looked at me like a person, just a means, a tool. Even now, I didn't say anything for a long time, just stared into the fire, watching the embers twist. Then I stood, packed my gear, checked my blades, restocked my supplies. Only then did I speak. I'll go. Their eyes widened. You're leaving? Mom asked. I'll check it out first, I said flatly. If it's safe, I'll come back for you. A lie. They didn't know it, but it was a lie they deserved. Westridge was real, fortified, organized, armed to the teeth. And best of all, they didn't underestimate me. The moment I stepped through the gate, their leader, a woman named Sloane, looked me up and down and said, You made it here solo and alive? I nodded. Damn, she grinned. We could use someone like you. They gave me a room, hot food, access to their tech and medical resources. They saw the way I duplicated ammo, the way I teleported behind a target during sparring drills. And instead of fear, admiration, respect, they asked me for advice. They deferred to me in strategy meetings. It was addictive. It was everything I had never been given. I didn't go back for my family. Not for weeks. Not until the guilt was thick enough that even I couldn't sleep. So I went, just to see if they were still alive. They were. But they weren't okay. The cabin was half collapsed from the storm. The fire had long gone cold. They were pale, starved, trembling when I arrived. Natalie looked like a ghost. Mom burst into tears the moment she saw me. Dad didn't say a word. He just stared, ashamed, eyes sunken. You came back, Natalie whispered, broken. I said I would, I answered, calm, flat. But why? I didn't answer that. Because even I wasn't sure. I gave them food. Enough to get them through another week. Then I stood to leave. You're not taking us with you? Dad rasped. You don't deserve to come, I said quietly. And that silence, it shattered something inside them. They didn't follow me. They couldn't. By the time they scraped together the strength to stumble out of the ruins of that cabin, winter had choked the mountain pass. Their supplies were gone, their strength drained. And Westridge, it wouldn't have welcomed them anyway. Not after what I told Sloane. They used you, she said, sharp-eyed. Your own family used me, starved me, blamed me for everything that went wrong in their lives. And you still saved them? I didn't save them, I replied. I just didn't let them die. That was the difference. The truth. I didn't hate them anymore. I nothinged them. Their opinions didn't matter. Their pain didn't twist my heart anymore. Their regret didn't bring me peace or satisfaction. It just existed. A fact of the world. Like ash on the wind, I saw them again. 2 months later, they were part of a group begging for entry at Westridge's gates, half dead, faces hollow, looking for salvation. They didn't see me on the wall, staring down. They didn't recognize me in my armor, or with my stance, or with the command of my voice. Not until I gave the order, turn them away. Dad looked up, startled. His mouth dropped open. Then he saw me, and in that single heartbeat, I watched the recognition shatter him. He shouted my name, begged, cried, said all the things he should be said when I was 10 and hiding bruises in the dark. But it was too late, and I just turned and walked away. Because the thing is, they weren't monsters, not exactly. But they weren't good people either. And now there was no going back. Absolutely time to twist the knife. They lingered outside the gates for 2 more days, watching, waiting, hoping I'd change my mind. But I didn't. I spent those 2 days helping fortify the wall, training recruits, reviewing patrol patterns with Sloane, sharing meals with people who saw me as something more than a servant, a scapegoat, a shadow. I didn't glance down, not once. Sloane noticed. You sure you're all right? She asked on the second evening, handing me a cup of coffee that was more bitter than warm. I nodded. They made their choices, I said. And now they get to live with them? Sloane was quiet for a moment. Then, with her usual bluntness, she muttered, "Good. Hope they rot." And I didn't correct her, because deep down, some small part of me hoped the same. They were gone by the third day. Didn't even leave tracks. The storm that hit that morning buried them. It was like they never came. The others didn't ask about it. But Sloane told me later they tried to bribe the guards, that Natalie broke down sobbing, that Mom swore she'd do anything if they were just let in. I didn't react, because what did it matter now? Weeks passed. Then months, and with them came stories. A scavenger team passed through an abandoned camp and found evidence: frozen blankets, cracked boots, old photos. My family had been there, barely holding on. The rumor was Natalie tried to trade with a raider group and didn't make it back. Mom and Dad disappeared soon after. No one saw them again. The world had chewed them up like it had so many others, but I kept going. I taught teenagers how to survive in the cold, helped design West Ridge's first hydroponic farm, doubled the ammo stockpile in 2 months. When a horde came through in early spring, I teleported behind the lead beast and gutted it with a blade I'd forged myself. People cheered my name. They said I was a hero. And I didn't correct them either. They never knew the truth. That the reason I was strong, the reason I survived, was because I had already died once, not in body, but in heart. When you've been discarded by the people who were supposed to love you, there's a part of you that never fully comes back. But what is returned is unbreakable. There's a memorial wall in West Ridge now. Names etched in stone. People we lost. People we remember. My family's names aren't on it. No one asked. No one suggested them. No one knew them. And I didn't speak up, because some stories don't deserve a plaque. Some people lose the right to be remembered. Spring came slow. But when it did, everything bloomed. The trees, the gardens, the kids laughing on the training fields. I walked those paths every morning. Patrols saluted me. People nodded with respect. Children waved. They called me things like Commander and Ghostblade and the girl who walked through fire. But to me, I was just someone who survived. Someone who built herself up from broken bones and bite marks and bruises that never fully faded. And for the first time, that was enough. One afternoon, a girl around 16 came up to me, stood on her face, wide eyes, clutching a knife like it was the last thing tethering her to life. I heard. "You used to be like me," she whispered, "before this place, before the world changed." I looked at her, really looked, and I saw her, the same fear, the same ache, the same fire buried under years of being made to feel like nothing. I knelt down and said, "Yeah, I was like you." Her voice cracked. "But you're not anymore." "No," I said, "I'm not. Some people say healing is about forgiveness, but I don't think that's true. Healing is living well, living fully, living free. And in that, I had won. My parents, Natalie, they had tried to keep me small, that now I was too big for them to even reach. And their regret, it was their prison, not my burden. So I left the past where it belonged, buried, faded, unspoken, because all that I am, I built myself. And that's a legacy no one can take from me.